Hi, my name is Mike Tusaw. I'm a financial advisor from St. Charles Wealth Management. Today, we're going to discuss strike price selection for buying a put option. The first thing that I want to mention is that with put options, it kind of works backwards from the standpoint of if an option is in the money or out of the money. For example, let's say you were to buy a call option. Stock is priced at $50 per share. If you were to buy the 45 call, it's considered an in the money call option. However, with a put option, the 45 put would be considered out of the money. By the same token, the 55 put would be considered an in the money put, and the 55 call would be considered an out of the money call. Now, if they're both at the money, right at the 50 level, they're both at the money. But just so you have an understanding before we dig a little bit deeper into this. Let's start this conversation by talking about an in the money put option. If you were to buy an in the money put option, this is what's going to most closely resemble selling a stock short. For example, if you have an in the money put option that has a 99 delta, let's say, the stock goes down, the stock goes higher, your put option is going to move pretty much the same as what the stock is. Of course, if it goes higher, the put's going to be going against you, and if the stock goes lower, the put's going to be going in your favor. Now, I typically don't recommend buying that high of a delta of put, but I do want you to have an understanding of how it can work and where it would be. The further in the money you go, the more it's going to resemble that of just being short the stock. And the benefit of buying a put option over shorting stock is that you have a limited risk. Whereas with shorting a stock, you have unlimited risk to the upside. Now, keep in mind, if you were to buy something that's slightly in the money, you're going to have a little bit more time value that you're going to have to worry about expiring or worry about going away. You're also going to have to pay more money. So if you don't want to pay as much money, then you may want to consider an at the money or an out of the money put, which we'll talk about in a moment. So the main advantages of an in the money put, it's going to most closely resemble that of being in a short stock position. And there's going to be little or no, or there's going to be a lot less time decay risk when you buy an in the money put option. Disadvantage, you have to pay more for it. Next, we have at the money puts. I'm going to start by stating the obvious. They're kind of in between in the money and out of the money put options with how they can function. Typically, one at the money put will have a delta of roughly negative 50. So it's the equivalent of shorting 50 shares of stock. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages to at the money puts as well. The main disadvantage of an at the money put is the fact that you're going to be paying the absolute most amount of time value that you possibly can if you buy an at the money put. So in other words, you have potentially volatility working against you, you have time decay working against you, and that all happens the second you hit the buy to open button and it gets filled. Now, what's the advantage of an at the money put? Well, I believe the main advantage of an at the money put is that of gamma. So as soon as that stock goes down in value and you have that put option, it's going to go from being a 50 delta option to possibly a 55 delta option, then maybe a 60 delta option because it goes in the money. And what that does is that makes it so that as the stock is going your way, meaning down, because we're just assuming we're just buying a put option here, you're essentially selling more shares of stock as it goes lower, and you're not paying anything greater to do that. It becomes an exponential win. That's the advantage of buying an at the money put. Now, will it win before the time decay gets in its way? That's the $1 million question. And that's what you need to ask yourself before buying an at the money put. Once again, there's advantages and disadvantages to all three of these, and hopefully that explains them for at the money. And finally, let's talk about out of the money puts. Out of the money puts can be kind of exciting if they're used properly. And the reason that I say that is because there is typically, not always, but typically an inverse relationship between implied volatility and the price of the underlying. For example, if the price of the underlying goes higher, a lot of times implied volatility, meaning the demand for options, the pricing demand for options, I should say, because there could be a lot of demand for selling it, but the cost of options typically goes lower. And if the underlying goes lower, a lot of times the value of options can go higher, meaning there's more demand for them because there's more of an appetite for people to protect risk. Now, does that happen all the time? Absolutely not. But when it does happen, it can be pretty exciting. So let's say, for example, that in a vacuum, implied volatility goes higher, meaning the stock stays the same, and there's just so much more demand for a put option that there's so many more buyers of that put option. Well, the value of the put is going to go higher, even though the stock doesn't move, just due to an increase in implied volatility. So as the stock goes lower, a lot of times there'll be more demand for buying put options. And the value of the put goes higher with the factor of that demand, along with the stock going lower, making it a more valuable put option. And the combination of an increase in implied volatility and the stock going lower can be very exciting for an out-of-the-money put option. It can be a great benefit. The other benefit, of course, is that this is going to cost the least of these three. So those are the two benefits. Now, of course, the disadvantage to buying an out-of-the-money put is that it's the least likely to make money, meaning that if the underlying only moves a tiny bit to the downside or doesn't move at all, it's not going to really make much money. Whereas with an at the money or an in the money, if it just moves a little bit, you still could potentially make money. So as with all of these, there's advantages and disadvantages to all three of them. And finally, if you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe. This is how we get our content out to as many people as possible. If you are looking for a financial advisor who does work with the option product, assuming it's appropriate for every individual client, because we do treat our clients all as individuals, feel free to reach out to me. Would love to have a conversation. My website, stcharleswealth.com, it's on the screen, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Mike Tusaw. Thank you and have a wonderful day.